Is it working now? Hey, now you guys should be able to hear me. I started by saying this is the first stream in a really long time and I might need to figure stuff out, and we'll run with it. And we already got there. So thanks for being here today. And double checking, I think I need to. I'll bring the music down a little bit. I'll kill it for now. Yay for royalty-free music from Humble Bundles. They are really good. All right, so kind of work through everything gonna do today. Gonna be talking about Strixhaven cards and go through some of the stuff that we got there. Going to run through one of the patrons' decks. One of the things we provide for patrons is the ability to go through a deck and provide feedback based off of what you have. So the first deck up we have is from one of our patrons, Nicole, or Nicole, I can't remember how to pronounce that, which is a Mad Farm deck for CEDH on a budget. After that, I'm going to be going over a way to break down a deck when you're trimming down, you've brewed a deck, or you're just assembling a ton of cards together. I wanted to show you guys how I personally go through and go from 150 cards down to 100. Then going to be talking about kind of adjusting that said deck again to what meta you're playing with. Now this might be for casual or for competitive. It doesn't really matter in that regard. Competitive is a little bit stricter. Casual is a little bit easier to do that sort of a breakdown. And then at the end, we're going to be doing some Risk of Rain. I think I have a few people that will be joining me, and possibly if we have more room, maybe some of you guys. If you guys haven't played Risk of Rain 2, it's on my all-time favorite games. So let me, unfortunately, I have like multiple screens I'm having to deal with here. Oh yeah, the new update for Risk of Rain 2 is amazing. And I'm one of the people that have like 100%ed Risk of Rain 2 for pretty much every single patch that they've come out with. So, let me come over here, get the cards in right, come back over here. Yeah, there we go. Now, for some reason, it's not working right. Okay. Are we still looking weird? Oh, jeez. Sorry. This is mainly my ADHD that's doing this. Or ADD, whatever you say. Fix that, fix that. Alright, that's better. Alrighty. So some of the Strixhaven cards that we have. This is actually something I've been really excited about as far as Strixhaven goes. They have, well, my take on the meta right now is basically that they are attempting to make a think of a Harry Potter Wizards duel, which is a little interesting to think about, but that's really what it feels they're trying to make standard, where everybody is casting, you're casting spells and then basically responding with more spells. Based on everything that they've revealed thus far, there's a lot more instants and sorceries interactions rather than permanent based interactions. There is the number of creatures and whatnot, but it is definitely more on the Wizard's Duel side of things. So the first card here, Conspiracy Theorist, is what I'm kind of looking at as our red Bob. We had green Bob, and we had Bob, and now we have a red Bob, which is just decent card draw. Now, this does assume that you are using discard-based draw, which is the rummaging, so to say, from red. which most of their card draw has been recently. And it gives you the option to add an extra mana to those spells and draw an extra card on top of that. But also you can discard a card and then cast it afterwards, which is pretty nice for red as far as an extra little card draw. On top of that, he's a 2/2, which is pretty decent. I'm happy to see him. And let's see. Next up, Flamescroll Celebrant, which I am. So we'll go back to Red Bob. Right now, I haven't seen lists that have specifically said they want him right now, but it's one where, yeah, wheel decks would definitely want to see him, just because it's free. The only downside is that, actually no, I forgot. There's not a really big downside. The positive is that it's a May exile, so you can choose to exile a card to be able to cast it right away, or you can choose to not do it. And you actually, if you are wheeling, you get to choose the exile after you look at your cards that you've wheeled, because these are all individual triggers that will be. It's an individual trigger that happens after the wheel resolves. So you discard your hand, you would be able to get one of those cards back to recast at that turn. It's one that I assume we're going to see some incidental card draw pieces get replaced by this, just because it's more permanent line card draw. I'm thinking we'd probably be seeing this possibly in Corvold. Opus list might, but I don't necessarily think. I think they got blue and it would be decent enough there, but I would probably see this in non-blue for card draw more. Next up would be Flamescroll Celebrant, which is looking at chat. Is discarding individual, like drawing it. The way this is worded, it looks like the whole is a chunk. So whenever you discard one or more non-land cards, you may exile one of them. So if you have 5 cards in your hand and you wheel, you'd be able to cast one of those cards that you've discarded. But on top of that, you also have the ability that when he attacks, you can pay 1 to discard and draw a card. So you rummage, you can discard a card and then instantly exile that to cast it again. So rather than just rummaging and looking at a new card, you have the ability to rummage and then cast. Yeah, oh yeah. You can only get one of them, so the downside of losing the wheel portion of things, you still get the ability to get one of those cards back, which can be pretty solid. And the other part is that this also can work with other people's wheels. So if he's out and somebody else wheels, you can then have the ability to maintain a counter spell that you discarded in case you didn't really care, and it gives you that extra card for free. Going back, Flamescroll Celebrant. I just always loved Curious Control, and this is one that looks like it could be a really nice addition to Curious Control, but on the passive side of things. Activating abilities that aren't mana abilities, so fetch lands. Every time somebody fetches, if this has a Curiosity on it, you could draw a card. It kind of adds up fairly quickly, and for some of the Curiosity decks, they had extra cards in the main. So Firebrand Archer was a big one. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you deal 1 to each opponent. I would see Flamescroll Celebrant probably right below that. So there were a few others, like I think it was Lobber Crew. There's a few that tap for damage, or whenever you cast like an artifact. But I personally would see these as a little bit higher because they make it so you don't have to do anything for it. I really like Flamescroll Celebrant. The kind of downside to it is that it is also white, and it does limit the decks that it can be in because of that. I'm trying to get what that what the other site is, because I didn't pull that up. Give me just a second while I get that really quick. Having to scroll through these. The benefit of the white side, though, is that the white side, it's a 2-cost silence. So you can have a curiosity item that also has the ability to silence. Downside is this too. So it's a nice little piece of tech. I'm excited to see it actually see play. Next up, the interesting one was Mentor's Guidance. Mainly if you're ever running Baral. I just really like the fact that this is going to be 1 and a blue, scry 1 draw, then scry 1 and draw. It's quite a bit better than like, well, at 2 cost, it's one of the better draw spells that you could get out of Baral. So I'm excited about that. Vanishing Verse is one that I was actually really interested in. The downside, again, of being on the white and black side of things. Having white is such a hard thing, surprisingly. But the list of stuff that this gets rid of at instant speed is crazy. Which I'm really excited to see. So, Vanishing Verse gets rid of Collector Roof, gets rid of Hull Breacher, gets rid of Grand Abolisher, gets rid of Aven Mind Sensor, Opposition Agent, and then all the really big enchantments. Blood Moon, Carpet, Mystic Remora, Rhystic Study, Sylvan Library, Underworld Breach, exiling Underworld Breach right away, pretty solid. Back to basics, pretty much anything that's reanimating on an enchantment. Smothering Tide, Necropotence, it just gets rid of them all at instant speed for 2 mana, which is really useful. And a nice way of getting out of some of the meaner creatures that are out there right now. I'll be excited to throw this in a few decks. Now we have the Chain of Smog. I don't know if you guys have seen Chain of Smog or gotten through what all this does. If you're not familiar with Chain of Smog is target player discards 2 cards from his or her hand. That player may copy the spell and may choose new targets for the copy. And the goal of this is that you can cast it at yourself. You can discard 2 cards and recast it. Now, you actually having cards in your hand to discard doesn't matter for copying it. So you cast it, you discard 2 cards, you copy it, you do that till you have no hand, and you just keep going. And you can make infinite copies of Chain of Smog. Witherbloom Apprentice, whenever you cast or copy a spell, you drain each opponent for 1 and you gain a life. This is kind of the big 2-card combo that's come out thus far from Strixhaven. And while, yes, it is a 2-card combo, I do not like the fact that you are making yourself discard your entire hand. People could just simply wait for you to have no cards in hand and then kill the Witherbloom Apprentice, and you've dealt 3 damage to the table, gained 3 life, and won with nothing to yourself. It's not quite worth it. But people have found it, and so there's a bunch of talk about it on Twitter. I don't know if any of you guys have been interested in that at all. I kind of view this on the Ral Storm Conduit side of things, where if you just copy 2 spells on the stack, you can copy them infinitely. This is basically it, but it's just in a really bad way of like discarding your hand. It's like LED can be really great, but you're also giving yourself a Black Lotus. This is discarding your hand in order to ping everybody for 1 and gain 1 life. If that is all you get out of it, it's not worth it for me. This was another one of the commands. The Witherbloom command actually has some good functionality in it that I am excited to see as well. So the multiple levels of hitting things, the first mode and the last mode aren't necessarily worthwhile. but the destroying target non-creature, non-land permanent with value 2 or less hits things like Cursed Totem, Isochron Scepter, Carpet of Flowers, Mystic Remora, Animate Dead, Dance of the Dead, Survival of the Fittest, Underworld Breach. The target creature gets -3/-1 is not necessarily as relevant, but it does poke off Aven Mind Sensor and Notion Thief. So this is something where whenever we get commands or charms, I always really like seeing how relevant it is to your local meta. So for a really long time, I ran Dimir Charm in Tasigur, specifically because killing sorceries and killing creatures with power 2 or less was really relevant in the meta that I was playing in. Now, it might not be relevant overall. Now it's not really. Now I really want 3 power, and Dimir Charm really doesn't do that. But seeing if you're ever fighting up against, if you've seen a lot of Scepter decks or Cursed Totem, or a lot of Reanimator, it can be a decent inclusion. And that's kind of the same thing with Vanishing Verse, how good they can be. Now I think we're getting to the end and more of the cards that are on the far end of things. Strixhaven Stadium. This is one where I really like potential, and there actually is a potential place for this in a deck, and that is Najeela. Now, people on the Najeela server were kind of up and down on it. The hard part is finding a card to cut for it. But the benefit of Najeela is that you can be making creatures to swing at people super fast. And most of the Najeela decks are trying their hardest to get a turn 1 or turn 2 Najeela. And if this follows that up, you're looking at being able to swing with 2 creatures, then with 4 creatures, then with 8 creatures, and theoretically in 2 to 3 turns you'd be able to get the counters up there. And most people don't usually have a really fast response to it. Hey Paperclip, Nikki, thanks for joining. And Super Cavitations, thanks for joining as well. Not yet, no. That is coming up, actually, right after this. We've got a few more cards to go through, and then we're going to look through your deck. Next card on the list is Solve the Equation. I personally I don't really see this in competitive EDH at all, but this rounds out our 3-cost narrow tutor cycles. We have Idyllic Tutor, we have Fabricate, and now we have Solve the Equation to get an instant or sorcery. So I'm excited for this to be in any non-black tutor decks. I mean, because if you're already running Fabricate in like a Niv Mizzet Parent deck, then it's not necessarily out of perspective to see Solve the Equation show up in that same deck. I mean, obviously we have Mystical Tutor and Personal Tutor that are going to be a little bit higher on the ranking, but again, this puts it to your hand. Difference of 1 versus 3 cost, 2 cost being the draw the card portion. It's not bad. It's definitely not bad. I believe we're getting into the joke stuff. Yes. All right. Brina, the Demagogue, which is the unfortunate child of Derevi and Edric, where it got nothing that was good. Whenever a player attacks one of your opponents, if that opponent has more life than another of your opponents, the attacking player gets to draw a card, and you put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control. Giving card advantage to your opponents, not the best. If those 2 conditions were reversed, they put the +1/+1 counters on it, and you draw the card, this would be really fun. I'd be totally on top of this. But as it is, I don't think I'm really going to see anything with Brina, unfortunately. It's kind of more of a meme card at this point. And then the last one that I, again, think is more of a joke. And this is even from a casual perspective. There's no way this is going to be competitive. But this is just a straight EDH card that they're printing in a main Magic set, which, granted, 50% of Magic players right now, or 50% of the games of Magic are Commander, so I can see them trying to do that, but come on, you're printing a Commander set. Put the Commander specific general in the Commander set and give us like a real card for Standard that might actually be competitive in some way. So that's just me. I think that is the last of them. Yep, that's the last of the cards that I was going to go through for now. Were there any cards that anybody else had seen from Strixhaven that they were super interested in? There was one that I did have in mind, but I didn't really bring up, and it was comparing the Boros Hofri Ghost Forge. Let's see if I can pull that in. Give me just a moment. Sorry, I need 3 monitors and I only have 2, and so I'm having to switch between the sources on them, unfortunately. The last one that I forgot to pull in, but I was kind of interested in. And that should be it. Back we go. Is it there? Alright. So the funny part about this guy is he's a 5-cost legendary Boros commander. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature. So that wording right there is on the Black Shepherd out of Theros. I believe it's the Shepherd. Let me see. Yeah, Nightmare Shepherd. And it's kind of interesting to me that a 4-cost 4/4 flyer actually exiles the card and makes it a 1/1, whereas the 5-cost Boros card gives it +1/+1, gives them trample and haste, exiles the card, but then when the creature dies, when the token dies, the card goes back to your graveyard. I don't quite get how they were able to have that exact same ability in such different colors, the white red versus the black. Super Cavitation. What is the Boros artifact one that you're talking about? I did not see that, so let's see if I can find it really quick. Do you know the name of the card? Is it the Venerable? Nope, that's not a legendary. Giant Artificer. Osgur's a Reconstructor? Yeah, let me So, This guy. I see the issue. This is the Commander 21 set, and I spaced on that. You know, I actually hadn't looked at this card. Actually, I looked at it in passing. The exile artifact card with value X or less from your graveyard creates two tokens that are copies of the exiled card. Now, I'm trying to think if there is a way to easily break that, and I am not sure. I mean, getting extra artifacts is decent, but... So Isochron Scepter, I was thinking that, but I don't see what we would necessarily do in order to go infinite because we're in white and red, and we don't have partner, we don't have blue, we don't have dramatic reversal. Yeah, well, I mean, Sundial, it ends the turn, but that really doesn't do anything. And you can only end the turn on your turn. Mirror of Fate. Oh my word. Boros Doomsday with Mirror of Fate. Oh. I don't know if you guys can see this very well. Let me zoom in. Mirror of Fate. Yeah, that's quite interesting. You could do that. Downside is the cost and actually getting there in Boros. To be honest, I think you're still better with like Feather as a Boros commander than this for competitive EDH. I just don't see. I don't really see a spot in CEDH for this guy. That'd be a real challenge. Interesting card. I really hadn't looked at the C21s, so. Oh, no, okay. I had seen a few of these. I just didn't see him at all. Zaffy just didn't look anywhere worthwhile at all, especially at 4 cost. Willow Dusk. I don't really see green-black life gain as that big of a thing. I mean, green-black spending life is decent. Zaffy as an infect meme. Well, I mean, you'd have to spend 10 mana value to deal 10 damage to a random opponent. And Magnivore comes in. Hey, Foxmolder. Magnivore comes in with the awesome card here with the actual combo. Isochron Scepter tokens. You put Silence on one and Final Fortune on another, and you have a Sundial the Infinite out. Yes, that does give you infinite turns with the ability to prevent people from interacting. However, you still have to actually cast a silence, and so they would have time on your extra turn in order to interact. You have multiple layers of interaction because you would be able to cast a silence. They would try to blow up one of your things. You could then cast the Final Fortune and Sundial. But yes, getting all of those cards in your hand is really difficult, especially in Boros. Yes. Fox Mulder, I'm going over most of the cards that I thought were interesting from Strixhaven. Then we're going to be running through initials deck really quick. I think, yeah, Magnivore, definitely. It's possible. You have found the line that makes this possible, but I don't think it is reasonable. So I don't see Oscar ever really seeing this thing going through. Give me just a moment while I pull up the next deck really quick. Let's go back over here. And here we go. Apparently my headset isn't hearing anything, although I'm talking, it's not hearing anything, and it was not liking that. All right. Now, I'm going to transition back over here. There's one unfortunate thing about this deck list, and that is it on tapped out. I used to use tapped out a lot. It was the best thing at the time, and now we have a few newer things. So, Nikki, could you move to something else? Just for the rest of us. So the notes on this one is this is a Mad Farm brew. Let me double check. It's not optimized since it's pretty much all the cards that Nikki owns. Would love to update the deck as it hasn't been updated in a decent amount of time. And let's just give this a quick rundown while we look at this. We've got Bruce and Timna, Mad Farm. So we're looking white, black, and red. Just doing a quick perusal on the artifacts we got. The one that sticks out for me quickly is Smuggler's Copter, but just looking through the rest for the deck. Tomb Pyro. Twin Flame. Not super familiar with what that's supposed to be in there for. IOK. That is a really nice meta inclusion. I'll talk about that later. Fragmentize as well. And creatures. We've got Blood Pet. Yep, that's Mana Guy. Therapist. Oh, this is the Modern Horizons one. Yeah, I was going to get to Twin Flame. I figured I'd see it in the creatures as well. Okay, so Children of Koilos. So this is the Tin Pin side of things. All right, Dockside, Dual, Hope. Loyal Apprentice is really nice aggro. I would like to start seeing this more. I thought I started seeing it in a few Tana Timna decks, but this is one that just provides a crazy amount of creatures available for people. Sarah Ascendant. Nice. Yes, Corpse Knight does block Timna if you have the misprinted one and people don't call you out on it. That is hilarious. And Dance. Okay. Oh. Okay. So all of the pulling cards out of people's hands were specifically due to getting rid of Flash, and you really haven't touched this deck since the Flash ban. Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. That makes a ton of sense. And I do have one thing right off the bat. So you have Lean and Relic Warder, and you have Zulaport Cutthroat. So you're looking at being able to loop Animate Dead, Dance the Dead, Necromancy, and Lean and Relic Order for infinite death triggers to kind of just kill the table. What I don't see in this board is Razaketh, because Razaketh lets you do almost all of that in one creature. 100% I would want to see Razaketh in here. And if you've got Entomb, You've got Reanimate. Yeah, you've got everything. Razaketh is just like an instant include in this deck. He's a big boy, but he basically can turn any one creature that you have in play into a Leonin Relic Order. Leonin Relic Order gets swapped into a Animate Dead, and then you just have the entire search loop all done at once. Yeah, you definitely should have that. Hope of Ghirapur, this is basically so you can go off without comboing out. I don't necessarily like that as much as Grand Abolisher. Supercavitation, you played against me. When was this? Was this online or was this at an event? So let's go over the cards that I was interested in. Smuggler's Copter. Overall, I can definitely see wanting to get an extra 3/3 damage at an opponent fairly easily. You can crew it with Timna if you can't get Timna through. That's a pretty nice meta include. Also, almost all of your one-drop dudes can crew it, so Smuggler's Copters, it's a nice meta choice. I like it. Hope as a I don't have an Abolisher included. Okay. Definitely this should be a Grand Abolisher. 100% should be a Grand Abolisher. Oh, nice, Supercavitation, SCG Con. I so want to be able to go back to those things. That was a really fun event. I'm glad we were able to get a game in. So, as far as the targeted card removal, so Nikki had put in the Cabal Therapist and Inquisition the Kozilek and Cabal Therapy specifically to get rid of Flash. There's another way that you can look at these, in that if you believe you are going to combo off, you can see one of these cards as a preemptive counterspell. That one lets you look at the scariest player's hand. You can look at the scariest player's hand and see if trying to think. Lost my train of thought. You can see if it's actually viable to go off this turn. So as adding one extra mana, you're not playing a blue deck. This definitely is a way to kind of protect yourself. This was something. The downside is that it only hits one player, whereas a counterspell would be able to hit multiple players. In this case, I like them. I like them here where you have combos that you're trying to go off and you don't have a lot of easy way of protecting them. You're pretty much stuck on Leonin Relic Warder, and the downside is you don't have sack outlets really to protect Leonin Relic Warder. So if somebody Path Exiles it or Swords to Plowshares it, exiles it in some way, you are kind of SOL. Unless you pull out the Dual Caster Mage Twin Flame combo. Which, that's a decent backup. That's a decent backup. I think you're mainly on Adnaz. I can see Twin Flame and Dual Caster being better than Kiki Jiki. And you don't have a lot of valuable Kiki Jiki in here. Yeah, I could see that go. Was there a particular reason for Memnite, Nikki? Or was it just a fast damage with Timna and being able to crew stuff? I'll give it just a second for chat to catch up if you're still here. Okay, so you're using Memnite for like Infernal Plunge. Okay. And Culling the Weak. Okay. I think having specific creatures that you're running for those, I'm not a huge fan of. I would probably look more at Rite of Flames turning 2 mana into 3 rather than the Infernal Plunge route. You do have Dark Ritual. Culling the Weak is great, but I don't like having otherwise useless creatures in a deck for that. And I understand it's a 0 drop. It pulls down the converted cost for ad nos. 1/7 still, that's decent. I've definitely seen very functional ad nos decks at 1.9, still under the 2.0 CMC mark. And having a big Razaketh at the top isn't the worst thing out there. You totally can live with that in the deck. It does kind of hurt if you just rush to it, and that's the last thing, but it's something you just have to do with your thinking through what. When you get down to 10, 15 life, you start thinking, how many cards do I have left? What's the chances of getting Razaketh if you haven't already? It's just something you have to think about. I don't see any reason why Razaketh shouldn't be in here. Also, Opposition Agent should definitely be in here. Sarah Ascendant, was this really just a aggro card that worked very well with Tymna and also gaining you life? At least I assume so. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all in all, you're not in a bad way. If you really are having issues with mana, you don't have a mana crypt yet. I assume you just don't own one if it's not in here. Yeah, okay. I also don't see a Rakdos Signet. And Rakdos Signet could be in here. Definitely could be in here. Mox Opal is decent. This is kind of on the... So, interesting comment from Fox Mulder. I think he should run placeholders. What do you mean by placeholders, Fox? Ah, a way to play this in both CEDH and casual. Okay. Yeah. This deck definitely has the ability to kind of pivot to being a more casual deck fairly easily. The downside of Tymna-based aggro decks, if you're playing in casual, is that you will run into places where you just get run over and you don't really have big creatures. So if you get to turn like 5 or 6 and you don't have like a really solid board state, you're just going to get run over by green 6/6s, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Hello, Lingastar. Welcome to the stream. We are going over one of our patrons' decks just to give them ideas on where to take it from here. Let me just go over these really quick, make sure I can give you succinct stuff, and I'll wrap this up quickly here, but then I'll throw some info in our Discord for you, Nikki. So we don't have a Mana Crypt, totally understandable. Rakdos Signet is definitely something that could be in here. It is not a bad thing to include. Sometimes I like it over the talismans, specifically if you're really focused on life. Yes, it doesn't tap for mana immediately, but it doesn't hurt you each time. Your anti-flash targeted removal, targeted discard is decent, but pulling out the therapies would probably be a decent idea. Inquisition's not bad. Also, Thoughtseize isn't bad if you're still keeping those. An Inquisition and a Thoughtseize could probably replace both the... Taking out the Cabal Therapy and the Cabal Therapist and putting in a Thoughtseize would probably be decent. Definitely, we'd want to run in Razaketh. You have everything that a Razaketh combo has except for Razaketh. And, I mean, I've run Ad Naz and Razaketh at the same time. It's totally doable. Otherwise, you're in a good spot. You're on Leon Relic Order combo with the extra side of Dual Caster Mage. Oh, and Opposition Agent could see a good spot in here. And those aren't really great. Yeah, so placeholders make it so that she knows the final layout of the CDH version, but doesn't have to wait to play it in case you're waiting to pick up specific cards. And yeah, placeholders do work. Putting proxies in place is something I usually try when I am wanting to look at the full version of the deck and then kind of pulling it back to what I have. So it is very common for me to have two deck lists, one for what I want it to be and one for as built, so that I can kind of tell the difference and know where I need to change things later on. It might be worthwhile to look at to try to put a budgetless version together for yourself, Nikki, and see what cards you're wanting to put in if you had the money to, and try to figure that out. Because you have a few of the really great cards. I mean, some of the more expensive ones that'll be real pain to get. I mean, you have Lion's Eye, you have Mox Diamond, Mana Vault. You have a bunch of the fetches. You have the shocks. I don't see the duels. So Plateau, Badlands, and Scrubland. I do see Scrubland. Okay. So you're missing two of the duels. Totally understandable. They're stupidly expensive. But all in all, solid deck. In case if there's any others, actually, Hopagirapur. Actually, let me go with the cards. I like Fragmentize. One cost, artifact and enchantment removal. Downside of being sorcery speed is okay, seeing as it's one cost. The big thing that prevented this from seeing a lot of play for a really long time was, one, if you're running green, you're running Nature's Claim, you don't need this. And two, if you're not running green, this didn't hit Paradox Engine, but we don't have to worry about that anymore. It's a great include. Loyal Apprentice, like I said, a stupidly good aggro card with Timna. I don't know if they actually have, I mean, it's $3, but you put this out with Timna, and it makes a 1/1 haste flyer every combat. It's just good. it almost always turns Timna on. There's almost no reason that you really need to worry about. Then we talked about Mem Knight, we talked about Sarah Ascendant. So Nikki, I'm gonna finish writing up some stuff and I'll throw it in the Discord channel for you later. And then let's see. Giant pile of cards. I'll talk about this in just a second. Air Draken, do you know the legendary creature Tiny Bones? My friend's trying to make it as CEDH as you can. And Pat from the 99 has comp Tiny Bones. Tiny Bones is a super interesting commander. In most casual situations, Tiny Bones can be a little bit frustrating, especially if everybody's running just straight discard. But he has the ability to go pretty crazy on the Adnaz route. You're kind of running very similar to Keurig, but without cutting yourself as much as Keurig does, because Keurig also has the ability to gain you life. And you're a little bit slower because of that. So, yeah, maybe Tiny Bones will be something we'll talk about in another stream. So, next up, I wanted to talk about trimming down a deck. So one thing when you're going to brew a deck, there are several different ways you can go about it. You can sit down on a deck list site and type out the cards, and you might get the exact list of cards that you want. And the downside is there's probably a pretty good chance that you don't have all of those cards on your own. And in this case, this is a deck that I was brewing for casual. It's just the whole goal was Tasigur Planeswalkers. Now, I had a list of 100 perfect cards, but I didn't necessarily have spare versions of all of those to put in the deck, and I don't necessarily want to print out printer proxies right now. So I'm trying to do all the cards that I have. So one way I do it is I go through my cards and I say, hey, this is one that I would find interesting that possibly could fit in the deck. And I've gone through and I have these cards here, as well as the rest of the deck that I did end up making right here. But I wanted to walk you through how I go about trimming down a deck when you don't necessarily have everything you want in your perfect version, but you have your as-built version. Now I added a few extra sections in here specifically to go through this. We've got all of our creatures, we've got all of our enchantments, artifacts. I just went through my boxes of cards and pulled out roughly 150 cards. And now we're trying to kill 50 of those cards from this list. The way I do it is rather than, some people have said like the 7-7 piles, 7 piles of 7 cards, in order to get a balanced deck. I have specific piles that I go for in order to kind of maximize what you're doing, and it also really helps you understand what your deck is focusing on or what the pile of cards that you already have pulled out is. So one thing we kind of just don't care about land. Land, we'll figure out land after the fact. But the big sections that I do is we have mana acceleration, utility cards, removal, tutors, counterspell, theme specific, and it looks like I am missing card draw. I might already have it in here somewhere. I thought it said I did have it. So is there a card draw section? So let's actually make a new category. Okay, so it says there's a category, but it won't let me put anything in there. So I'm just going to make a new category. It happens at times. And the whole point of doing this is to kind of help you identify what the theme of your deck is, what you're really trying to do, and of the cards you have, not which cards you need to cull, but from what part of your deck you need to cull those cards. So I'm going to go through and kind of quickly move these into their sections to go through these fairly quickly. Oh, geez. One of the downsides of Archidect is they like to use the new pretty art, and it gets to be really frustrating when you don't know exactly what those cards are. Man Acceleration, this Finale Devastation's a tutor. So Man Acceleration can be creatures, could be artifacts, could be spells. This was supposed to be theme specific. The whole idea would be like Emergent Ultimatum. The original thought was Emergent Ultimatum looks really cool. Why don't we have like a Deep Glow Skate, a Doubling Season, and a Planeswalker, and have a Planeswalker already in play? You get all three of those, and you're like, hey, which one of these broken cards are you putting in my bin, and which of the other two am I getting back? So it's pretty decent in that regard. That was the original intent. So tutor, this is demonic tutor, but sure. Demonic tutor, degree of pain's removal, dark petitions tutor. All right. Tutor. Now this is where we have to kind of figure out this card is mostly removal, and you kind of have to go through that and figure it out. Counterspell, removal, counterspell, removal. Generally, I view Narset's Reversal as a counterspell. Can't see if that's a T1 or a TL. Teflernan. Thanks. I'm glad to be back. I'm really glad to be back. This is one that I've been wanting to do this for so long. Counterspell. Where's card drawing? There we are. And Drowned in the Loch, mostly I view that as a counterspell, but it's kind of both. Dimir Charm, we'll throw it in counterspells for now. Take through time, card draw, go down to removal. Now, on this deck building site, it's a little bit of a pain. Normally I would do this in front of me on my table because these are physical cards that I have. But I'm just wanting to do it here so you guys can see it easier. This is removal, counterspells. That did not look like Brainstorm. I'm just gonna say that art did not say Brainstorm to me, but I'm not gonna judge that. That's a counterspell. That is removal. And that's the last of the instance. Alright. Now, Planeswalkers wise, here's the thing. They were all Snabblers. No, this is casual. This was just a casual deck. My original introduction to EDH was for casual. And I really only got into competitive EDH because I pretty much did everything I could do in casual, and I was wanting to do things like Storm and Ad Nauseam and Doomsday, and you can't really do that in casual very nicely. Like, it's not fun for everybody else to play against that. So that's where I started playing CEDH, was because I pretty much made every type of deck I'd wanted to, and I wanted to try new stuff. Now, I'm also now trying to do different things with commanders that I've done. So when I first started Tasigur, I actually started it out as a casual, like, get the most value out of Seasons Past. And with Seasons Past, I ended up playing it 1v1 against somebody. And it was brutally painful for that person to actually play against. It just ran over them. And that was when I first thought that, hey, maybe I can see a competitive EDH version out of this because of how strong it was. And that's where my Tasigur Seasons Past deck came from. But I always kind of wanted to go back and remake that deck with Planeswalkers, specifically because of how much fun that was back then. Now, here's the fun part with Planeswalkers, is you kind of either have the option of putting them in your, in this case, I'm trying to make Tasigur Planeswalkers. I could put these all under my theme categories, or I could also put them under what they actually do. In this case, I'm putting them mostly in what they do. Vivian Reed is really great at removal. Teferi is really great at an acceleration. Master of Time is card draw. Alright. I need to do something really quick over on my other computer. Because I am not doing anything audio-wise, it keeps turning off my headset. Although I'm talking, it doesn't think that's real. Nope, wrong one. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Give me just a moment. Mr. Awesome Socks, welcome. You... let's see. Okay, cool. All right, there we go. So you guys shouldn't be hearing anything, but I am hearing that. Perfect. Now it won't cause problems for me. All right. So where were we at? We were at Planeswalkers, sorting out Planeswalkers. Card draw. Ashiok. Ashiok is actually more on the utility side of things. Why did it not move? Yeah, okay. Ashiok Nightmare Muse. This is kind of more... This is one that fits on the other side of things. I don't really see a lot of what Ashiok does. It's just the main big part of what I would want Ashiok as a Nightmare Muse is for the +1, and that's really just an other. There's not a lot there. Apex Predator is amazing removal. That is decent removal as well. Jace is card draw. Mind Sculptor is card draw. Karn Liberated is removal. Karn the Great Creator. This is really other. He's just his thing. Tameo is removal. This is... So, depending on the deck, sometimes I will have card draw and recursion separate. In this case, I'm going to be putting Tameo with card draw just because it's essentially the same thing. Oko's removal, Ob Nixilis is removal. This is card draw. Mainly removal. And to be honest, Liliana Dark Realms, mostly she finds swamps. That is a mana acceleration walker right there. Now I can remove these placeholders that were holding these. Sorry if I'm going fast here. And you know, I did not realize people were subscribing, and thank you. You are actually some of the first subscribers that I've had ever on Twitch. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Making my day. Let's see. We've done counterspells. We've gone over here. Now we're on artifacts. Aetherflux Reservoir is 100% in other. Yeah, this is getting to be a bit big. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to remove all the lands for now, because they don't really matter. And maybe that'll resort stuff out. View, sort, custom, types, view, sort, custom. Alright, that's better. We're getting better already. Great Henge, mana, 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 Swift Boots. This is going to be other. Once I get through all this, you'll kind of see, I'll be able to talk through what exactly we have and where we're trying to focus things, because it'll make a lot more sense then. And I really wanted to walk through doing this change. Thanks, Mr. Awesome Spots. Split cards. Split card draw into Fox says you'd split card draw into two sections, engines versus cantrips. Yes and no, and I'll talk about that when we actually get there, because while that is useful, it does have some differences. So like this is kind of a similar thing. A mana rock could be a one-off for tap, whereas As Foretold is an engine. It's still mana acceleration. That's the core of what it's doing. Burgeoning's mana acceleration. Copy artifact is going to be general utility. Death Reap is card draw. Training Grounds is a utility. Elnis Reborn is removal. Where did the removal pile go? There's the removal pile. Sylvan Library, that is card draw. We're almost done, and it'll be a lot easier to see what I'm getting at. We have to do these guys, and then we have to do the creatures. And then it should be a lot more apparent very quickly as to what I'm needing to talk about. Removal. This is going to be a tutor. This is removal. Now, the reason I do it this way is so that I can get past my natural bias of I like this card and I want to put it in a deck. And it makes it so I can either try to get out of my shell of I like Consecrated Sphinx, it's a really great card draw card, and see if there's another card I could be putting in that place, or if I just have way too many of those cards in the deck. This is tutors, and now we just have creatures, and that should be fairly quick. This is card draw that happens to remove. This is mana. This is theme specific. Consecrated Sphinx is the lovely card draw that I actually just mentioned. This is just general utility. This is general utility. This is tutors. This is theme. Utility. Mana. Mana. Card draw. Utility. Card draw. Card draw. Theme. Utility. Theme. Theme. Mana. Alright. I'm going to resort these again. Custom types. View. Custom. Alright. So now we have all of our sections here. Very easy to see. Yeah, I used to throw in, like, I always loved Party Jace. Jace Bellerin. This was before, like, Mind Sculptor was really that big of a thing. Hey, Awesome Sucks. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the Prime. Thanks for the Bezos cash. So now, thinking back, this deck was supposed to be Tasigur Planeswalkers. Now I have all the Planeswalkers in their sections, but if I look at this, theme-specific cards, I've got 7 that are specifically on the I'm wanting to do Planeswalkers. And then the rest of the Planeswalkers are spilled out within their deck. Okay, that's fine. 7 cards that are theme-specific, pretty solid. Utility. Now, these are just like, they're generically good cards, is the way I say it. They don't have a very specific thing, but they always make the deck better. And there's some that are kind of considerations, like Shardless Agent. That's one that's kind of, it's fun to play with. You get extra value out of it. This is one of the ones that I actually culled fairly quickly, specifically because of running 1-drop counterspells. At that point, 1 and 2 drop counterspells just kind of removes Chartless Agent, so I'm going to drop that now. But we've got Time Warp. Time Warp's really great with Planeswalkers, but it could also just be really great to draw an extra card, play an extra land. There's not really a spot where that Time Warp exists, so it's just in general utility. Same with Phantasmal Image. It's a good creature. It can do a ton of stuff. Neoform's really fun with Tasker, because you can basically turn it into some really big creatures. Or you can turn a smaller creature into something bigger. It's nice. Heroic Intervention is just protection. Forgotten Ancient is just kind of fun to make a creature bigger. And the fact that you can move it, it's a nice wall that can turn a creature into a beater. And Copy Artifact, it's just utility. So I'm kind of on the general utility cards. I think this is high. That's a lot. Now coming over here, remember, this is supposed to be Planeswalkers. 28 pieces of mana acceleration, 24 pieces of removal, 18 pieces of card draw. I think we're a little high in these 3 categories. I'm possibly high on tutors. Utility can probably drop some, but we definitely need to cut mana acceleration, card draw, and removal. And this is kind of the real big reason for this, because you can see cards that are really just good. And you're like, hey, I want to put that in my deck. But how do you identify if you really have space for it, or really whether you're wanting to do it for your deck? So if we go here in the removal section, we have generically really great things. Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy, Beast Within. But we're trying to prioritize Planeswalkers. So of these that aren't Planeswalkers, Eldritch Reborn actually works with Planeswalkers. That's pretty solid. Toxic Deluge is just an amazing one. Sultai Charm's kind of iffy. It's not the best. It's 3 cost. It has some limits. Okay. Song of the Dryads, pretty decent. The downside of Song of the Dryads is Oubliette has pretty much passed it up for me as far as killing a commander. Song of the Dryads gives them a forest, whereas Oubliette, actually, they don't get the creature. It doesn't go to the command zone, and it does nothing for them until Oubliette's gone. So right away, why don't we just pull Song of the Dryads out? Bongify is really great 1-drop removal. Pestilence is really good, but our life total sometimes can be a problem. The fact that it doesn't hit walkers is pretty solid. But I'll probably shave that right off the top. Decree of Pain's pretty expensive, and I think our mana cost is probably decently high. Yeah, let's get rid of Decree of Pain for now. Deadly Rollick is free. We'll keep that. All right, so first pass, we've already taken out like 6 cards, I think. We'll leave that. Mana Acceleration. Great Hedge. It's an amazing card, but we don't have a ton of creatures right now. This is something we need to check later. Talismans, they're good, but we don't necessarily need all of them. Awesome Sucks. Okay, so to kind of recap for people that are just catching up, this is, I'm kind of walking through how I approach culling like a 150 card pile down to that 100 card for a deck. Now, I started this deck originally brewing it up, and I have a list of the perfect 100 cards that I wanted for it, but I don't actually have all of those 100. So I went through the cards that I do have, and I'm trying to get them into a reasonable pile. This is pretty much everything that I had, and I typed it all up. And I wanted to walk through how I cull, because this is kind of the big challenge. How do you get from 150 to 100? Probably the 110 to 100 is probably the hardest. So going through these, Sky Shroud Claim, really great 4-drop acceleration, but we might not be that big. Seedborn Muse is awesome with Tasker. There's no reason why I wouldn't want that. Sakura Tribe Elder, we might not have enough basics. This is one I'm kind of iffy on. Mox Diamond, pretty solid, especially if we're running Life from the Loam. so I think I want to keep that. Liliana of the Dark Realms is one where it can be really good, uh, specifically because she gets you lands from your library into your hand. The removal happens every once in a while, but it really isn't that great unless you have Urborg out. And the emblem is like, it never really happens. At 4 cost to get a swamp a few times, I think we're just going to cut that even though it is a walker. In Search of Greatness, this is one I really wanted to try. One of the pieces of content I'm coming up with is what I'm terming the Johnny files. Cards you should be playing for casual that probably you don't see a ton of value in them. And this is one of those that I actually have as part of one of my articles I'm putting together. Horizon Spellbomb's kind of on the same line as Sakura Tribe Elder. I think we're going to have too many of those as far as basic land searches. So actually, I'm going to get the basic ones out right away, and we'll just see where we land after that. Farseek. I believe we had Farseek, Nature's Lore, and 3 visits. We probably want to remove one of those. Because we might be running out of forests, so I probably would drop Nature's Lore or 3 visits and keep Farseek. Exploration's always great. Dream Devourer. If you haven't seen this, it's freaking amazing in casual. Basically, it gives every non-land card layaway. You pay 2, and you can pay 2 less the next time you actually cast it. Now, think of this. You foretell a Hull Breacher, and next time that somebody tries to wheel or whatever, it's just blue. It's really good as far as being able to kind of spread your mana out. And if you're playing it cards that are instant speed, you put it away on your turn, but then you can then cast it on other people's turns. So you get it pretty much right away. And it's as if you paid full price that turn cycle, but every cycle after that, it's just really solid value. Signets are good, Lantern's good, Burgeoning's great, Birds is great, As Foretold, kind of iffy, but we're going to need to make cuts, and Arbor Elf could be pretty solid. Card draw. This is where things start getting really crazy. Runic Armasaur, if you're playing casual and people don't have great mana bases, this one usually gets cut. Phyrexian Arena is a really oldie but goodie. I think life total is going to be more of an issue. I'm just going to chop it for now. Nezahal is just hilarious to actually put into play, and I really have had a lot of fun having a Mystic Remora out, then letting it die and casting Nezahal and just really sinking it home. I'll leave that for now. Narcissus is part of our Walker package. Mystic Remora is always great. Jace Bellerin, he's really fun. He's party Jace, people like him, but we'll get rid of him for now. Fact or Fiction and Dig Through Time. I usually end up only with one of these. In this case, because we kind of have specific things we're going to want to get to in this deck, I'm going to drop Fact. Death Reap Ritual is another one that's kind of meta-inclusive. If you're not playing this, it's actually pretty solid, especially if one of you are playing tokens, or you have somebody at your table regularly that is, because pretty much whenever a creature dies, at the end of turn you draw a card. It's 4 cost, but over the course of a game, it draws you a ton of cards. It's really worth it. But I'm going to drop it for now, because we don't have a lot of our own tokens that we're making here. Consecrated Sphinx, I'll leave it for now. Now, Brainstorm's great, but we could drop it. It could be there, it could not be there. And Baleful Strix is a pretty solid creature, but I'm going to drop it for now. One of the reasons that I'm doing these kind of cuts is because we're also running Tasigur, and getting a Baleful Strix back from Tasigur is not really great. And in the same way, looking at Tasigur overall, getting a Arbor Elf back with Tasigur isn't that great. It's one reason why I prefer a lot of I prefer instants and sorceries for land ramp, because you get the mana faster. So I'm going to drop Arbor Elf, keep Birds, but I don't think I have any other mana dorks here. Yeah, there's no other dorks. Spiffy Boots, we probably only need one. Karn the Great Creator. This is one that in casual tables I end up kind of being a little frustrated. People really have issues with it, mainly because it turns off their stuff. It can be really nice with Tasigur, but at this, I'll leave it for now. Ashiok, just kind of card I want to play with. I haven't played with it before. And Aetherflux, this is kind of a crutch that I sit on. If I need to gain life, Aetherflux is really great. I'll drop it for now because we don't really... It just sticks out as a sore thumb. We're not trying to storm. We aren't doing any other life gain. We'll drop it for now. Now let's take a look. We're at 96 with no lands, so we probably need to cut at least 30. Need to cut at least 30 cards. Let's now start looking at... We did our custom sort, now we're looking at types. Specifically, we want to... Are we sorted by CMC? View sort, CMC. Alright, specifically because we have a few things that are CMC specific. Spellseeker. We have a lot of things we can get with Spellseeker. But... it's just kind of like an extra card that's not on theme for what I'm wanting to do, and it's just a tutor. That's not the best tutor. We'll drop that. We do have a lot of high end here. We probably want to cut one of these big guys. Sphinx of the Second Sun. I've been yeah, Ashiok in my rogues list for the exact reason. You just want to play with it because I wish Ashiok saw more play in standard so I could actually see it more, but like the Demir list never saw Ashiok, and I just like the fact that it's exiling cards from people's libraries, which they always hate. One of my most like pocket enchantments that I love playing with but is terrible over online play right now is Psychic Surgery. And if you haven't played with it, it is painful. And I had it in Tasigur at one point, in actual control Tasigur. I also had it in Niv Mizzet. Because it ruins people's day. So whenever an opponent shuffles his or her library, you may look at the top 2 cards of their library. You may exile one of those cards, then put the rest on the top of the library in any order. So any top of the deck tutors just get instantly nullified by a 2-cost enchantment. Anytime they search for a land, you get to just snag a card from their deck. Milling or exiling cards from people's decks is one thing that they usually don't like. And I've had people that were like ready to win off of a Flash Hulk, like just stop everything they were going to do until they killed Psychic Surgery, because it has the ability just to wreck them with no ifs, ands, or buts. So yeah, Ashiok, I want to play with it. It's like $4, like $5. Yeah, it's worth trying to get to actual play. Sphinx the Second Sun, I like the mana. I'm gonna keep that. We'll drop Consecrated Sphinx. If we keep Neoformen, we can keep Nezahal. Scarab God's a really solid beater that sticks around. Keep him for now. Okame's really just card draw. I'm not seeing a really big reason. Mr. Awesome Sucks. Good luck. Go meet the fiance's parents. Have fun. I really appreciate you joining, but yeah. Go meet the fam and have a good night. So, see you around, Awesome Sucks. Drop that for now. These are all on point. Yeah, we've dropped a few. Alright, we've dropped 3 creatures. Instant time! This gets to be a challenge. I've stopped playing Cryptic Command. It's just too hard to cast. Saw It Coming has actually been fairly decent with the Foretell. Same side as what Dream Devourer does. Splitting it up makes it pretty nice. We have a decent number of counterspells. We'll drop that for now. Negate is great. Drown in the Lock, we'll kill that. Demir Charm, it's funny, but we'll drop that. Cane Denial is a solid removal. Drop Brainstorm for now. And drop Sultai Charm. 16 Walker, 16 Instants, 87. Alright. Colors-wise, where are we at? We can... Alright. Looks like we don't necessarily need as much black. We can drop... Well, creatures-wise, we don't have a ton of creatures. We don't need a Great Henge. Probably drop some talismans. So at this point, I am just dropping a few things because we need to cut them, and keeping the ones that I think are going to be the best out of those. If people have questions. Yeah, Super Cavitation. Cryptic was amazing. The downside now is that we have stupid stuff like Narset's Reversal and Fierce Guardianship, and it's just way too good. Alright, we're down to 83. We still need to do another 15 to 20 cuts. Time Warp kind of is, so let's go back to our custom sort and see where we're at. Theme specific stuff. Now, when you've got a deck theme, these are the ones that I kind of lock in as being, I never want these to go. Now what I do want to do, one thing I want to do now actually, I'm going to move all the Planeswalkers onto their own. Just to try to pull those out and see where we are for non-walkers. After we've done the big pull out. Specific, card draw, card draw, card draw. So we looked at everything with our walkers in place of what they normally do, and now we're looking at it all in without those and seeing what non-walker cards we have. Making sure I got them all. Yeah, alright, so we're at 16 Planeswalkers. Four pieces of card draw without the walkers. I'm kind of okay with that. That's an okay amount. Utility-wise, I think we could probably cut one or two from here. For casual games, tutors have been something that I've started cutting quite a bit more of. Infinite Fairies. Sorry you got here late. What I'm doing is I'm walking through how I break down... When I make a deck, if I don't have the exact cards, I basically go through all my collection and throw 150 or so cards together. And this is how I'm walking through how we go from 150 down to 100. And the big thing was we're piling them all based off of what they do. Theme specific for what you want to do with the deck. Counterspells, removal, mana acceleration, utility, tutors, card draw, and other. Now, in this case, we previously had a bunch of stuff in Planeswalker. We had the Planeswalkers in all of their areas, and we kind of trimmed down a little bit. We went from 150 with lands, so about 115 cards now without lands. Now we're down to 81. And the idea is to try to help you see where the cards in your deck are and what your deck is focusing on. By doing this, you're able to kind of see what area you need to cut from. And one thing I've seen quite a bit is like people have had token decks. And it's a problem that I had originally was you'd have token decks, and what's really great with tokens? Anthems. Let's put some anthems in the deck. And if you don't kind of work through this kind of scenario, I've run into people that have had 15 anthem effects and 5 token creators. And it just makes it so you're overloading on one thing without actually balancing out the deck. And I'm walking through how we do that. Now, looking at tutors here, Demonic Tutor's great. Diabolic Intent, we don't actually have a lot of creatures, and we don't necessarily want to sack Tassiger, so let's drop that. Creature-wise, right now, we have some pretty decent creatures. So Defense of the Heart would be pretty decent. Though I forgot if Defense of the Heart... It's any creatures. It doesn't limit it to green like Natural Order does. So let's keep that for now, because we could like Defense of the Heart out, Spark Double as another walker. That's pretty solid. Where are we at down here? Defense of the Heart's decent. Pattern of Rebirth, not so much so. We'll drop that. And Dark Petition's kind of expensive for a tutor. And before I recapped for Infinite Fairies, I was talking about tutors in more casual formats. I have started to reduce the number of tutors in order to limit the power level. One of the things I wanted to talk about today was also how to adjust for your meta. And over the last 4 years, EDH as a whole has gotten a lot more tuned, a lot more streamlined, and more low to the ground. People have lowered their CMCs, they have gotten the good cards in the decks, and have started including more mana dorks and fast acceleration. I know people that would never run a Llanowar Elves, and now they're running a Llanowar Elves, an Elvish Mystic, an Arbor Elf, and a Finhorn Elves in most of their decks. And it's a really big change to say, hey, I really need to be more active and push out mana faster. Now, even though things are more streamlined, what I found is if you limit the number of tutors and you hold yourself back that way, you have the ability to play stronger cards without being oppressive regularly, so that you can play really powerful planeswalkers or really efficient board wipes, but you're not always having them in your hand. You're not always going to be able to say, hey, I always have a counterspell to answer something. The same way as counterspells, like in a Grixis aggro deck, I actually only had 3 counterspells, specifically because I was trying to make it so I was having to limit myself to only protecting my stuff rather than stopping other people from doing things in the meta. Now on that line, let's probably drop Dark Petition. So let's see, removal. We have 6 counterspells and 11 pieces of removal. We could probably drop some of these. I like Eldest Reborn specifically because it can get us Walker back. Deadly Rollick, really great exile. Toxic Deluge, solid. Pernicious Deed, doesn't care about walkers. Oubliette, great at removing your commander. Yes, concept of utility. So utility cards, what I have down here, they are generically good cards that you can't immediately attach to the theme of your deck. Time Warp, it's really great. Gives you an extra turn. It's good with Planeswalkers. It's not the best. Sometimes it's just a It's just draw a card, play an extra land. It could be good. It could not be good, but it's an option to put into a deck. The Scarab God. It's a really great beater. It can also hit graveyards. It's great. Forgotten Ancient. It can get really big and make other creatures really big, but it's not really on point for. We're not running a +1/+1/+1. We're not running a +1/+1 counter deck. We're not running a bunch of different creatures, but it has the ability of getting really big and being a good blocker. And then it could also move those counters, say, onto Tasigur and start going aggro. Yawgmoth's Will. It's just infinite recursion. It's amazing, but it doesn't fit into any other category. Phantasmal Image. Great creature. Neoform. This could probably actually be in tutors. Heroic Intervention. Protects your stuff, but it doesn't do anything else. Copy Artifact. It can be great. Training Grounds. This probably could actually be Mana Acceleration, because that's really what it's doing. It's working with Tasigur specifically to make that ability cheaper. We can throw that over there. But the rest of these are really just, they're generically good cards that we probably could have in the deck or could not. In this case, I think 8 is a bit much on utility, because this is, the big thing with these is that they're not part of what we're trying to do with the deck. They're just good cards, and they're not specifically interacting with anything else. So, Yawgmoth's Will, it's great. It's really expensive, and it also gets rid of cards permanently. If it's a sorcery, we can use them with Tasigur later. Let's just get rid of that. Time Warp. Downside of Time Warp is that you end up playing Solitaire. If you get it back a lot, we'll drop that. Keep the rest of those for now. So theme specific, these are all of our proliferates and trying to get Planeswalkers out. Probably could keep these. There was a question about how do you feel about using slower, less efficient tutors, such as Dark Petition, as a way to power down your deck. That is doable. What I have done, instead of doing like Dark Petition and having a generically high-powered tutor, is I would go with transmutes. I would go with tutors that actually reveal what they are, to kind of further limit the power depending on the group. So if we actually looked at CMC wise, actually I just want to sort by CMC. At 2, hey, 2 CMC, we got a ton of stuff, but do we really care about any of that stuff? It's not really on point for what we're doing. Don't really care. 3, what of our theme-specific things? Gilderbairn, Evolution Sage, Flux Channeler. Okay, a 3 CMC tutor might be pretty decent. Then 4 is not the best, but 5 could get us Doubling Season and some of our fun walkers. So like a 5-cost transmute would not be bad. Or a 4-cost or a 3-cost transmute. I would probably go with those over a Diabolic Tutor. One, because it's a little bit less, but you're also giving information to the other players so they can actually interact with what you're doing rather than you playing Solitaire. The thing with Casual Commander is the goal is to sit down and have fun with your friends. And if you're playing Solitaire, they aren't having fun. So from a kind of a Johnny perspective, I like making interesting board states. I like interacting on the field in ways that I've never done before. And having a bunch of weird stuff in play and having to figure out what your plan is super interesting and it's pretty fun. So let's go back here to custom. We've actually cut quite a few things. We need to cut like 12 more, and we'd be solid. I think we need to cut Mana Accel. I think we have way too much Mana Acceleration right now. So let's look at the top end. Let's drop that. As Foretold sounds fun, but it gets really slow, and I don't get why people are super scared of As Foretold. it makes no sense to me. It's incredibly slow. But I don't get why people don't like it, so they usually kill it. We have that. We could probably cut training grounds because it's not doing anything except for working with Tasker. We'll cut that. Yeah. Mr. Awesome Socks. Aw. I will say that it never hurts to spend extra time with people. I've never regretted spending extra time with my wife or her family. I will say I have regretted spending extra time with my wife and my family, but that's just family issues. We'll go from there. We'll just leave that for now. Tutors wise, I see Finale of Devastation. I don't see a ton of great creatures that we necessarily want to throw out right away. Let's just look at types. Yeah, we don't have any Crater Hoofs. I think Finale can go. So this probably could be under utility. I'm just drop the other category because Lightning Greaves is just generically good. Copy Artifact, let's just drop it for now because rather than copying something else, let's just play cards and not have doubles of them. Those are all staying. We possibly could drop one of these. Probably drop a negate. Now, this is where we kind of get a little hard. We need to cut another 6 cards. I think we drop a removal. We drop a few more of these. Maybe 2 pieces of utility, 2 pieces of a mana acceleration, maybe a walker and a removal. And to me, that feels like a balanced deck based off of what we're looking at. If you see this, we've got what we're wanting to do. We have planeswalkers. We have ways of cheating them out and doing fun things with them. We haven't overloaded on things that aren't super relevant. So why don't we drop Scarab God? It's really great, but I want to try Sphinx of the Second Sun. It's just a new card and fun. We're pretty solid on our card draw. Leave that. We have... I really want to try this, so I'm going to leave that in. I think we probably drop a Talisman. And what is our worst Planeswalker? I think it might be Karn right now. Karn's not super interesting as far as it's not doing anything directly for us. There isn't a really big artifact we want to go get, and it's not going to really... It just does his own thing and doesn't really interact with anything else we're doing. I think we drop either Beast Within or Assassin's Trophy. I think we'll drop Beast Within. 15 pieces of mana acceleration, most of them all at 2 cost. I think if we drop one more card, we'd be fine and run 35 lands. What's our current CMC? 3.27. 35 lands would be okay. Any ideas? Ashiok's a possibility. Now, of note, I don't have Hull Breacher and I don't have Opposition Agent in here because of how much they slow games down, and this also prevents people from searching. Yeah, we could drop that. And I think we'll leave it at that. We've gone from 125 cards down to 65 cards. Really solidified what the plan of the deck is. And kept things that we really want versus things that we didn't necessarily need. Because we started with like 30 pieces of card draw. And we started with 15 counter spells. We started with 18 utility cards, like 7 or 8 tutors, and like 24 pieces of removal. And hopefully this has helped as we walk through pulling down a deck and culling it. And I think kind of wrapping things up, while I get people together for some Risk of Rain, do any of you have any questions about what we did or any comments? Right now I have at least one person interested in joining. Let me get this together. So there is the list of what I have right here, and let me see if it actually has the versions. I don't remember if Architect has versioning. I'm just going to undo all of this really quick, and I'm going to get back to what our original cards were, and then I'm going to export that list as something else. I should have done this before. I should have had 2 different lists. Alright, I think we're just about at the original list. Sorry I'm clicking so much. Alright, there we go. Here's the original list of cards that I threw together. Let's settings, no. Edit. Grab all of that, close this, do decks. We'll make a new deck. Yep, I want to leave. New deck. Oh yes, I still love Seasons Past Tiger. And I mean, I still have it together. It's not quite Seasons Past anymore, but I love Tassiger. He's just such a value engine of a commander. So I am going to, we got that saved. Let's find Tassiger, move that over there. Save this. And now if you want to see the original list and how it came from, I've posted that in chat and I will have that as well. All right. Now, if any of you guys are interested in joining, guys or gals interested in joining Risk of Rain 2, if you join our Discord, labmaniacs.com/Discord, I am in our voice channel. Feel free to join in and we can chat and have some fun. If you are not familiar with Risk of Rain 2 at all, let me boot it up and show you what it looks like. I'm going to transition